Forgiveness.
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 I'm sorry, but
Modern media does not seem to want Megatron to be an outright villain. It's a modern media thing. These days, villains always have to have some kind of reason for being the way they are, so the audience can get an understanding of why they do the things they do. And I'm kind of okay with that. It gives your villain a little bit more flavor, a little bit more depth. But seeing their motivations does not mean forgiving their crimes. And I want to take a look at the wider context of TF media and see if Megatron can ever really be forgiven. This is a vid that I originally did for the members, but I figured I'd release it to everyone, expand on it a little, and also clarify some of what I was saying. So in my big Megatron vid right here, I talked about how many of us came out of TF1 feeling like D16 was justified in his actions, but I've even seen people talking about how he's actually the hero of this story. And as much as I love this guy, to me that's going a little bit far. And I think we have to be mindful of how far Megatron actually runs with this. In the context of that movie in of itself, his feelings and actions are understandable, but the steps he takes are in completely the wrong direction, and how far he goes in that direction after the events of TF1 is total batshittery. Because the bottom line is, he's gone from a guy fighting off the shackles of slavery to a guy trying to enslave the galaxy. So obviously now there's a section missing in what we know. On one hand, we've got D16's fall from grace turning into Megatron, and then we have the Megatron that he will go on to be, the one that commits all these horrors and atrocities. But to go from the former to the latter, there must be more that sends him deeper into the abyss, because I don't necessarily feel like this guy is there yet. Crazy, yes, but a genocidal madman, not yet. So based on what we saw in TF1, can the D16 version of Megs be forgiven? I would say yes, to a certain extent at least. I think realizing that you've been a slave your whole life and that one of your two idols killed the other makes what he does to Sentinel justified, but not turning on his fellow Cybertronians. So can this version of Megatron be forgiven? Yes, probably, but to a certain extent. The Marvel version did have a habit of helping out in the face of bigger threats, most notably the battle against the Swarm and the battle against Unicron, but only helping out when your own ass is on the line isn't that big of a redeeming factor, I figure. And when you see him gouging Bludgeon's eyes out and then ripping his head off, you have to wonder, no. I mean, can you find it in your heart to be like, no, it's fine? Oh, side note, I am totally addicted to Earth Wars right now. It's going to be like a 10-year-old game that has no right to be as addictive as it is. Crazy cool character roster, and I simply cannot rip myself away. If anyone out there is still playing this, you can join my alliance called the Unholy Army. And if you haven't played this before, it's still available on the Google Store, so make sure you check it out. Oh, and I know this might read like a sponsored section or anything. It's not, it's just me. Like, this is what I'm into right now.
Megatron was born.
G1 Megatron's origin was slightly different and didn't have the rising up against fascism cause that he displays in a lot of other continuities, with him just being an evolution of what had been security forces suddenly took it upon themselves to exterminate the factory bots after the quintessence had been driven off planet. So basically G1 was just a slew of his attempts to exterminate and dominate without any justification at all. So no goddamn forgiveness for you here, Pappy. What? In Cyberverse, his motivations were again rooted in social justice, but the power quickly corrupted him, with him purging his opposition, declaring war, and committing increasingly tyrannical and violent acts, including ordering Shockwave to destroy the Allspark, the source of all Cybertronian life, an act that would have doomed Cybertron. So I reckon, no redemption for him. The acts are just too extreme. Very similar story in Transformers Animated. You can tell that his actions are principled and there is more than just a nuance of some kind of honor in there, but it's heavily overshadowed by his cruelty, his manipulation, and ambition. So I think that no, still no forgiving him either. Same vein of logic applies to the Aligned version, as well as the War for Cybertron version, where he rose from the gladiator pits and joined forces with Alpha Trion to overthrow the Quintessons, but then he turned on the old boy and killed him. So that's basically all of the good karma points from his backstory up in smoke. He did, however, turn on Galvatron at the end to help out Team Opie, but that kind of pales in comparison to shutting down a whole sector and killing all of his own troops within, as well as decapitating Ultra Magnus and carrying his head around for the odd friendly chat. The Armada version of the character showed some isolated actions and character moments that hinted at redeeming qualities, but again, for the most part, bit of a dick. He's a bit of a manipulative bully, basically. And trying to run over children while in tank mode, yeah, try and forgive that one. Tell you what I might do, what about most honorable deeds of Megatron? Have we covered that already? RID Megatron is even worse, having decimated numerous planets during his campaign for Predacon supremacy before coming to Earth and looking for Fortress Maximus. This guy totally irredeemable. I won't go into why, it's all detailed right here in this video. But trying to brainwash Earth children with cyberbats, well, that's just one example. As for Movieverse Megatron, he was always kind of a dick. Even before the Fallen corrupted him and he was head of security under Sentinel, he was just a bit of a dick. So as I figure it, because his motivations nearly always come down to his own megalomania, there's no redemption for him. Now, what really got me musing about whether or not Megatron can be forgiven for all the stuff that he goes on to do was what happens at the end of IDW, with the Lost Light saga ending with Megatron's trial reaching a verdict without us ever finding out what happened. Now, I don't think it's a question of guilty or not guilty. We all know he's guilty. The question is, what is his sentence? Rewinding a bit, he renounced Decepticonism, volunteered to get put on trial, but then ended up demanding that he be judged by the long-lost Knights of Cybertron, prompting him to go on a mission with Hot Rod to find them. Now, along the course of this adventure, he became co-captain of the Lost Light, and he did quite a few noble deeds, saving a colony planet called Ofsted 17, killing the DJD, he saved a bunch of organics on the Necroworld's planet, and fought against the Functionist Council, and towards the end he even had the chance to flee into the Functionist universe, but decided to come back to the regular universe to face judgment for his crimes. So all that would be on the good deeds side of the scales. But when you weigh up all the stuff on the bad side of the scales, and this has been illustrated a couple of times that I can think of, like here he's seen facing the music on a pedestal in a literal sea of skulls, and here on the Necrobot's world, he sees that each flower represents one soul that has died at his hands. So when the saga comes to an end and Ultra Magnus has made his defense and the jury announces its verdict, Megatron floats the idea that no matter the outcome, he deserves far, far worse, and we never get to find out what happened. And personally, I think he's probably right. I think if you take out the equation the fact that we all love this character, you have to admit that he probably deserves the death sentence for all that he's done. Now, of course, if Optimus was anywhere near this, I doubt that he would let that happen just because he's more of a turn the other cheek kind of bot, which then leaves the most likely outcome in my view is that he gets put in stasis for the rest of eternity. Although in Earthspark, neither of these things happened, and his thinly explained decision to abandon his conquest was put down to him having some sort of epiphany after meeting Dot Malto, which is why Earthspark never really worked for me. Making him a good guy is such a big thing in this universe, you better give it a good explanation. And they just didn't. So basically the thinking here is that Optimus kind of forgave him, or at least overlooked all of his crimes in the war, for the time being at least. If Earthspark gets another season, I really want this explained better. What exactly made Megs make this huge U-turn, and what exactly is Optimus thinking here? He can't just be like, yep, this is all fine, we buds now. We also can't forget that Megatron in the Unicron trilogy also sacrificed himself to save the universe by throwing himself into a black hole, and technically Movieverse Megatron did the same by turning on Sentinel, but his motives weren't anything more than self-serving, so I'm not sure that counts. So he has done many redeeming things. In fact, I'll probably do a video on them at some point, but nothing that could ever balance out the cleansing of races and crushing of spirits. So if I was bringing the hammer of judgment down, he's guilty, and none of the good that he has done can ever erase that. Anyway, that's my take. Let me know what yours is in the comments below. This vid was initially meant as an accompaniment to my huge Worst Deeds of Megatron vid, so it might be worth refreshing that one just to get a real sense of the crimes that we're talking about here. If this vid does do well, I might go through the whole defend Shockwave thing. Basically, a little while ago, Reddit asked people to pretend to be Shockwave's lawyer and come up with a defense for him. It was genius. So I could go through some of the best and funniest takes on there. I reckon that could be pretty hilarious, actually. I'm also thinking about doing a video on which armies could possibly beat the Transformer army. Like, if it was united as a whole, there really cannot be many. But I'd look at Skynet, maybe the Automatons from Helldivers. Let me know if there's any other armies I should put them up against. Ideally, robot armies. Okay, thanks for watching these slightly repurposed videos. It just gives me a little bit of extra time to work on new stuff when things get busy. The next members vid that I'm working on is going to be Unicron versus Galactus. Who would win? My Grimlock Spotlight is still in the works, and I've started work on a video on the Pacific Rim precursors. And I'm also starting to think of ranking the incarnations of Transformers characters in terms of power. And of course, if you've got any great ideas for videos, make sure you're getting them in the comments below. Alright, see you very soon for the next one, and cheerio, bye.